Welcome to the Sales Influence Podcast, where we talk about finding the why in how people buy. I'm your host, Victor Antonio. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for lending me your ears today. Today, I want to talk about how to structure information in your head so that you can give a killer presentation. And when I talk about presentation, I'm not talking formal presentation like PowerPoint, even though that's included. I'm also talking about how can you organize the information in your head so you'll be able to have that natural dialogue without losing yourself in the conversation. Let me go ahead and define this. Now, this is going to require you to get visual here for a second. I want you to think of drawing a house, right? Just draw a house. It has 5 points, just 5 points. So you got the apex, you got the roof. We've all drawn that little house, right? So it's got 5 corners, right? The top of the roof, bottom slides, 2, and then the bottom 2, right? Just a boom, boom house, right? Now I want you to visualize that at the top of the house, the point where the roof meets, right? The point of the roof, that's the number one priority that a customer typically has. Number one priority. Now slide down both sides of the roof, so to speak, and there you have the second and third priority, and then slide straight down and you have the fourth and fifth. Again, top, apex, number 1. Down the slope of the roof, you got 2 and 3, and then all the way down to the ground, you got 4 and 5 at the base, right? Now, I want you to think about this, that the top of the roof represents the number one priority the client has. When you slide down the roof, you got 2 and 3. That's the second tier of priorities. And maybe the bottom of the house is 4 and 5, right? And so I want you to think about this. These are the 5 things that your customers typically want to discuss and typically want you to answer questions on. Now, let me phrase this or reframe this rather. This is a B2B conversation. There's 5 things you know this customer cares about. And you know that the one at the top of the roof, number 1 is the big one. Slide down the roof, 2 and 3 are second tier, again, bottom being 4th and 5th. Now, I want you to draw this out, draw the house out, and then ask yourself, what are the top 5 things my customers care about? And then organize it in that fashion. Then what I want you to do is visualize that drawing of a house, and then see all the 5 points of that house, and then see the issues attached to each one of them. Okay, very powerful visual. So now when you're talking to a customer, you have in your mind that visual and you have all the 5 points highlighted so you never lose yourself. And as you're talking to a customer, maybe one-on-one conversation or even a formal presentation, in your head, you're kind of checking each of those off. Did I talk about number 1? Did I talk about number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5? You never lose yourself in a presentation. Now, let's push deeper because I really want to help you present more effectively. Now, let's take those same 5 priorities. I just gave you a visual tool for memorizing all 5. Now, let's go ahead and list those 5, and then let me ask you 4 questions. Ready? 4 questions. For priority number 1, what would you say? In other words, when you want to talk about that specific issue, what would you say? What statements would you make? Question number 2, what questions would you ask to get more information about that issue or that priority that would help you sell more effectively? Number 3, what would you do? Would you make them do an exercise? Would you make them draw something? What would you make them do? And number 4 is what would you show them? What would you demo to help you sell them on that issue or that priority? Now, it's a real simple formula. Say, ask, do, show. If I got 5 priorities, 5 issues I know the customer needs to talk about, 5 issues, and then what I want you to do is for each of those issues or priorities, what would I say, what would I ask, what would I do, and what would I show? And here's what I want you to do. Visualize again, if you will. On the left-hand side, you write your 5 priorities. Top to bottom, 5 rows. Top to bottom, 5 rows. Write out your 5 priorities or 5 issues you know the customer cares about. Across the top, your columns, write the word say, ask, do, show. And just like a grid, go in there and begin to fill them out. So for example, for priority number 1, let me repeat again. What would I say? How would I raise the issue? Number 2, what would I ask? What would I show? What would I do? Then go to the second priority. Okay, what would I say here? What would I ask here? What questions would I ask to generate interest, engagement, pain, whatever it may be? And then what would I do? Would I do something with them? Would I make them do an exercise? What would I make them do? Now, the last one is, what would I show them? Would I demo something? Would I show a case study? Would I make, and again, there's so many things you can do, but what I want you to do is to mentally fill out this matrix. Again, left-hand side, top to bottom, rows, priorities. Across the top, what do you say? What do you ask? What do you do? What do you show? When you can fill out this matrix and feel comfortable understanding what's in this matrix, your presentations will become that much simpler. So again, let's go to the visual, house in mind, right? 5 points of the house, come up with the 5 priorities. Once you know what the 5 priorities are, then ask yourself, what would I say to raise this issue or to just really talk about it? 2, what questions would I ask to dig for more information to help me position my product or service better? Number 3, what exercise would I have them do? What would I make them do? By the way, let me pause here. When I say do, you want to make them do something, whether it's fill out something, answer a question, maybe have a discussion. What would you make them do to kind of keep them moving? And then the last part is, what would you show them? Was it a case study? Again, and by the way, you don't have to have these in the sequence, say, ask, do, show. Sometimes you want to show first, do something, then ask them something, and then say something. So you'll have to determine the sequencing. But by doing this, by filling out this simple grid, you'll be able to create a more effective sales presentation. And that is it for this Sales Influence podcast. I know this was sounding like homework, didn't it? And it does. It is homework because sometimes salespeople just don't think through these things. And hopefully using this model, you'll be able to think through all the priorities and what you're going to say, do, ask, and show before you go check out this customer. Anyway, leave me some feedback on iTunes, Stitcher, or YouTube. Let me know if you like these type of podcasts. If you don't, I'll accept that feedback as well. Also, check out my online sales training platform. You know the deal, the Sales Velocity Academy. Go to salesvelocityacademy.com. If you want to sell more faster, that's where you go. Lastly, I want to thank you for listening. This is Victor Antonio, always reminding you, selling ain't hard when you know how. Take care. Hi, I'm Victor Antonio. I'm an author, sales trainer, and keynote speaker. I'm often asked, what makes a great speaker? Is it someone who delivers real content that the audience can use? Is it someone who engages the audience so they're part of the learning experience? Or is it someone who can motivate an audience to push them beyond their comfort zone and discover new abilities? The answer is yes. But the most important thing to remember is that I'm not there to look good. I'm there to make my client look good. Simply put, it's never about me, and it's always about them.